Okay, wonderful. Thank you. She was reading my mind. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with the presentation. Um, and we will go into presentation mode here. Maybe. There we go. All right. So, good evening, everyone. We're going to talk a little bit about a farm to school grant this evening. If anyone has questions as we go along, do not hesitate to drop them in the chat. I've kind of got mine popped up. Katie can monitor it as well. Go ahead and drop those in there. If there is anything after the fact that you guys think of, don't hesitate to reach out. But we will go ahead and get started. Maybe. There we go. So what is the Farm to School grant? Um, this grant is designed to increase the availability of local foods in child nutrition programs. You guys are going to hear me say that a few times tonight, CPN. It's going to connect students to the sources of their food. Things like education, taste tests, school gardens, field trips, and local food sourcing, all of those types of things. That's what the Farm to School grant is set up to do. The fiscal year 26 grant, which is what's currently open and due in December, that one can be used for new farm to CNP programs or to expand existing ones. So if there's an existing farm to school program already, you can use this grant for those purposes. Oh, went too far. My bad. Uh, so some of the objectives of this year's Farm to School grant is basically to improve access. So when we think about Farm to School, we think about local foods in the school, in school programs, whether it be in the school cafeteria or summer programs or anything of that nature. It's going to be able to do that in eligible CNP sites through farm to school programming. Includes local sourcing and agricultural education efforts too. So this doesn't just have to be sourcing food from farmers. This can be anything education, talking about where your food comes from, for example. So who's eligible for this? So there's been several misnomers out there. Um, I think with some changes, some things that went on earlier this year with some programs that stopped. This is not selling to schools. So this is not the program where schools could purchase food. That was a different program. Eligible entities for this grant is going to be it's going to be your state agencies, Indian tribal organizations. But majority of individuals that I think are on here this evening are going to be um, a partnership program when it comes to applying for this. You're going to have your child nutrition program operators, local agencies, ag producers, group of ag producer groups or groups of ag producers, and then your nonprofits. So when we talk about a partnership, because we talked about being having to have three of those individuals in a partnership. A partnership is going to be three confirmed individuals of that group that we talked about a moment ago. They have to be together in order to apply. So state agencies and tribal organizations are standalones, but the other three groups have to be part of a partnership in order to apply for this. At least one of those partners must be an eligible CNP operator. So has to be that certified child nutrition rather operator. So what is a CNP? So we talked about it has to be one of these. Well, here they are. Um, that's an umbrella term that USDA uses, but it's going to be programs like the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, Summer Food Service, Child and Adult Care Food, fresh fruits and vegetables, as well as a special milk program. So if any of these programs are operating in your area, um, one of uh, one of your partners needs to be a certified CNP, Child Nutrition Program operator. Um, in the context of this grant, which Farm to School is what we all call it, but it is technically the Patrick Leahy Farm to School grant, at least one project partner has to be a CNP. That basically means they're going to be one of the ones that actually administers these meal programs. So you're going to find that in your school district food services program, child care centers that participate in that, or a nonprofit that may be running a summer meals program for children. If there are any questions at any time that you don't want to put in the chat, feel free to raise your hand. Or come off mute just for a moment and ask too. We're a pretty small group here this evening, so we want to make sure everybody gets their questions answered as well. Along with Lori and Katie, if you want to jump in for everything, please do so. All right. So we know who's eligible. You have to have that partnership if you're not a state agency or a tribal nation. But what are the amounts? Kind of the big question. Farm to school projects range from 100,000 to 500,000 in award, and they are going to be over 24 months. So these are expected to be awarded July of 26 and going to run through June of 28. So a 2-year grant period. Now, when we talk about the funded amounts, that 100 to 500,000, that is going to be the amount funded from the program, from the grant. There's also a match requirement in this grant. It's a 25% match, the total project budget. So not the federal funded budget, but the total project budget. That match can be in kind or cash, but you can't use other federal funds as match. So you need to keep that in mind. Now, when we talk about match, what does that look like? Well, here's kind of just a general example of some different levels. So we said that those federal funds could be between 100,000 and 500,000. So here's what it looks like when we talk about the total project cost versus the match. So if we're going to have a project that's going to be 133,000 and some change, the federal request is going to be 100. That leaves your match of 25%, 33,000. So I'm not going to run through each of these, but this gives you a general idea. A lot of folks, if you do $100,000 project, 25,000 does not get it in match because that's going to be 20%, not 25%. So the math ain't math in there. So you got to do a little bit different look at it. So you have to have the total project cost and then kind of work your way backward. Hopefully that's clear as mud there. A lot of folks they kind of get confused about that, and it can be confusing at times. Okay, so we know how much we can apply for. We know who can apply. What are some things that can get paid for with this grant? So a lot of stuff that usually wouldn't be when we talk in terms of federal grants. Equipment and supplies, which is pretty normal. Um, but this can cover walk-in freezers, coolers, processing equipment, salad bars, ovens. Um, and equipment is going to be something with a useful life of more than a year, and it's going to cost more than $10,000. Supplies are going to be under that. So when we think about a supply versus equipment, that's kind of our breaking point. Supplies are things we're going to use up and going to be less than 10,000. So, for example, food processors, that's listed there. Um, Knives, cutting boards, cutters, those kinds of things, paper goods, those types of things are usually understood. But even some gardening and farming implements, if it's going to be under that $10,000 range, and isn't going to last more than, a year or so. Even laptops can be obsolete within a year these days. So yeah, so that's kind of our break point there is that $10,000 in that useful life of a year or more. Now, one thing to keep in mind, because we are working with um, the just a 2-year program, basically, um, if you do purchase equipment, it has to be approved, which basically just means they have to approve it in the grant. So if your grant is awarded, they're going to have looked at the equipment that you've put in there to be approved. Um, if it is going to be used or could be used longer than the project, then you're going to need to allocate that out. So if for example, if it's not going to be something that is going to be used up pretty, within that 2-year program, then we're going to need to kind of backtrack and figure out what percentage of use we're going to use. So it's going to have to be kind of percentaged out. Um, oh, sorry.
Here, did you see Connie's comment and question in the
No,
chat?
ma'am, hold on. Sorry. Thank you for letting me know.
You're good.
Oh, Connie. New this year, the RFA says the amounts over 100,000 will be contingent on funding. Do folks have any more info about that or insights? Um, well, Connie, like most things these days, most things are contingent on funding, unfortunately. Um, so, I mean, I don't have a great answer for that because, as Lori said a few moments ago, before everyone else jumped on, even with the shutdown, some of the U.S. state, the farm to school folks have canceled some of their office hours. So I think we just go forward as if it's going to be available. I don't know if Lori or Katie have heard anything other than that. But I think most everything we see these days say contingent upon funding.
So there's
Marissa said,
18.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I was
I was
going to
just
say
going to
there's
say,
18
Marissa said it's
million.
go, Lori.
highly unusual for them to put that language in there, but they must be really confident about it or they wouldn't have included it.
Yeah, it's just interesting
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
because
is,
it's
yeah.
always like law kind of caps it at 100,000 and they're like, we're going to do 500,000 and we think we can get it approved. So,
So it's not
anyway,
entirely unprecedented because 500,000 used to be the amount that was available to state agencies.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
so there's some precedent for
Okay.
that
Well,
amount.
that's helpful. It was,
Yeah.
yeah, it just jumped out at me. So,
Oh,
thank you.
no,
There
thank
is
you. Thank you.
18 million available. So I would say the larger your project is, the more ambitious you are. Um, but but I would say whatever works best for you.
So hopefully that helped, Connie. Thank you for bringing that up, and thank you, Katie, for pointing that out. I kind of have all that on a different screen. Thanks for monitoring that for me. Um, so yes, it is contingent, but hey, I'm a little excited that we have the program, so that it's going. Um, oh, that's a great question too, Maddie. She says that someone said that they thought they usually extended the deadline the length of the shutdown. I have not heard that, and I don't remember the last time we had a shutdown if that was the case. Um, but I haven't heard anything different on the if that will be the case or not. So that will be interesting to see because we also have some other grants that are looking to come open that are scheduled to open 1st of November, but nobody has shared with us if that's going to be the case or not yet. So just kind of keep an eye on and we will do so as well and try to share that with folks as we find out more. Um, so when we're talking about uh, uh, this equipment versus supply purchased. And thank you for the questions and the comments. That's super helpful for everybody and that's on here, including us. Um, we want to make sure if this equipment or supplies are not fully dedicated to the grant, and they think they're going to be used beyond the grant period, then like I was saying, you have to allocate the cost accordingly. So they actually shared a example in the RFA, a walk-in freezer that this that will store local foods, but also will store foods for the community food pantry. That's not a no-no. You just have to be sure to allocate the appropriate amount that the CNP program is going to utilize it versus the community food pantry, and you can only ask for that amount in the federal funds or in your project budget. So, not a no-no, but make sure that you allocate it accordingly and understand those rules. All right. Some more allowable expenses. Greenhouses. Um, so this can include things like buildings, irrigation, electricity, maintenance supplies, food expenses. Um, 10% of the federal share may be used to purchase food, but only for educational purposes. So be sure to note that you can't just purchase food for the school. This is going to be for taste testing or testing a new product. They must be clearly defined in the budget narrative as well and limited to those educational purposes only. Staff development or substitute pay, which I think is extremely interesting. I read a little deeper on this. Um, so when staff, if you are doing staff development for school staff, um, primarily as the CMP, they may have to have a substitute. So that substitute pay could be used for that. Any workshops or trainings for the project itself. And then evaluation cost. So if you have to do any type of evaluation of the project and the outcomes and the back end, those costs are allowable as well. Some travel. So travel and lodging for trainings that are necessary, any of these project trainings that we talked about. Promotional items, anything that can be directly tied to the project itself and properly described. However, per unit cost cannot exceed $5. So be sure that you're aware of that. So we can't go buy Yeti coolers or things of that nature for the project, but you can do some promotional items in this. And then subawards and partner contracts. If this is something that you think would be part of your project, they are permitted, provided that the subrecipients also follow along all of the allowable cost. Also, please note that no more than 49% of the project, which is the total cost, may be used by subawards or be used um, be subawarded. Sorry, I got a little tongue tied there. So just note that. So some unallowable things. These are not unusual things that we're used to seeing. Anything before you get awarded, you know, USDA won't pay for things before they say, okay, you're approved. So be sure don't start spending the money before you've signed the contract. Um, any AmeriCorps or Food Corps service member stipends that cannot be paid through this, and it also can't be used as match. Any entertainment costs. I don't know what that would be, but I thought that was an interesting unallowable expense. Like, who did that? So they had to come up with that to put it on the unallowable expense.
No
Interesting.
bringing clowns in to get kids to eat veggies.
I guess that makes sense. So yeah, exactly. So no gift cards or vouchers, nothing that can be a cash value. No meals or snacks for meetings. So the only time food can be done is if it's those taste tests. So you can't, bring a caterer in for a training. Advertising and public relations costs. So none of that is allowed. And you can't purchase a vehicle. So shocking, I know, but um, can't be purchasing a vehicle. So here are some examples that they give in the RFA of specific producer group project ideas. So if you want to launch a pilot program to create a farm to CNP initiative, this is a great way to do that. This gets those local food those local food producers introduced into the system with the nutrition services. So, incorporating more unprocessed or minimally processed, locally or regionally sourced meal components. So they can be partners, those producers can be partners with that, supplying those foods into that. Um, Readying partners to participate within this food marketplace. So doing some training, some educational tools on procurement rules, food safety rules. So doing some training on that on both sides, the producer side and maybe even the CMP side, so everyone knows what the rules are going forward. So this could take a little lift off of doing those training sessions. A few other examples. Um, So if you need to change up some of your infrastructure, so cold storage, processing, packaging. So if there's things that you need to change in the infrastructure to accommodate new local ingredients to better serve those contracts, then that would be an allowable activity. Integrating ag education. So we've talked a lot about education, career, technical education, all of those types of things and anything encouraging next generation producers as well. So I see a lot of high school FFA work, working with the school system and just getting that connection going early on for those next gen producers. Yes, ma'am.
Does that infrastructure improvement have to be at the school or can it be on farm?
It does not say at the school. It just says to be able to accommodate. So there was no specifics on where it had to be located. So I think
There's
Dr.
a
Jennifer,
question in the cat chat, Kara.
yeah.
Um,
Okay. So yes, you could potentially get coolers in the supplies and get promo stickers to put on them. Yes, Lori. Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, it is confusing wording, Jennifer. You can help. I think when they talk about food purchase on that last slide, let me go back so I can look at the wording. It talks about uh where mm, my apologies. I want to make sure I'm on the right. I think it was a which slide that talked about, but it's not, it's talking more about the process than purchasing the food into the system. Um, so the taste testing, yes, but it's going to be able to the process that would have to get that local food onto the menu and get those partners working together. Um, does that make sense? Let's see.
yeah, so I think it could be things like recipe development, staff training for using uh, those local products that are maybe less processed than what your staff has usually had.
Very good. Yeah, thank
So
you, Lori.
all of the all of the things around the
Purchasing food.
local food
Yeah.
without paying for the food.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it is. I had to actually read that a couple times myself. So good point. And if you guys will look, I think Maddie has to jump off here. It looks like with what shifts want. So you guys be sure to kind of check and see. I think they are looking to join up with some producers on a project for this. So
Exactly. Thanks, Kara. Yep. I have a neighborhood thing I gotta go to, but appreciate you guys and I'll watch the rest of it whenever you send it out.
wonderful. Thank you, Maddie. We
Thanks.
appreciate you. Okay. And thanks for the question, Jennifer. It is very confusing. Um, why wouldn't it be? Why would it be simple? All right, here's a few others. Um, Expanding experimental learning. So when we're talking about this is where I see that greenhouse coming into not just on producer end, but on school end. School-based farmers markets. You could do school gardens, the ag club, do farm visits. This could help with that educational piece. Hosting a field trip with the producer, um, educational experiences, that sort of thing. Another activity could be organizing taste tests and promotional activities on the consumption of fruits and veggies, um, where the producer actually supplies that. You can't purchase it, but they can supply. some of that for that program. Um, no clowns, as Katie said, so we can't bring the clowns in to give them and pay the clown for the food, but or to promote the food. But I like that, Katie. That was good. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a second and let Lori just mention a little bit as a former recipient of this. Back in 23, I believe, if I got that right, Lori, if I remember correctly, CFA actually received an implementation grant for Farm to School. So I'll let you talk a little bit on that.
Sure. So I don't think you mentioned this, Kara, but another eligible expense is paying staff to do activities. Um, so a lot of what our grant did was pay my salary for 2 years to do coordinating the farm to school network. The mini grants for school gardens were our matching funds because we had funds from the Foundation for a Healthy Kentucky um, that was funding those school gardens. So that was our non-federal um, match that we had. Um, some of the federal money went towards some staff support for the garden projects. Um, there was some travel involved. He's a big place, so it paid for some of my travel to go to producer trainings and to food service director meetings, and paid for some promotional things or marketing expenses like printing. Uh, I made posters for some exhibits that we did paid for our email service and our website hosting. So those were some of the expenses that we had, but the biggest part of it was paying salary.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I apologize. I guess I did miss that part on there. Not thinking, trying to hit the highlights of what the new things were and that were
Yeah, yeah.
different. So appreciate that. Um, okay, and so I
And
don't
Kara,
think, yeah,
we hadn't planned this ahead of time, but Connie also has previously had a Patrick
Lori,
Leahy.
can anybody else hear Lori? Okay, then
Yes, I can hear.
it's just me.
Connie Lemley with Frankfurt Independent Schools has previously had a farm to school grant, so Connie might want to say a bit about their grant. And Shane Bosall wasn't directly a recipient of a farm to school grant, but was a subaward
Okay,
when he was with Union County Schools.
wonderful. Yes, please, Connie, Shane, either one, if you want to jump off and share your experience.
Oh, I don't know if I have anything in particular to add. We had a planning grant in 2020 and then an implementation grant in 2022, and like found them fairly easy to manage and report on and all of those things. At least both of those times it felt like USDA was easy to work with. And also with these federal grants, I mean, you write it and then like 6 months go by before. So sometimes the world changes or things change. And we also found, especially with our implementation grant, that like USDA was like our goals stayed the same, but they were
Right.
flexible in
Yeah.
terms of it became really clear to us that we had so much food service turnover that
Mm,
without stabilizing that we couldn't accomplish anything else, any of our goals. And so we were able to rearrange our staffing money. And I became an
awesome.
AmeriCorps Vista member so we could shift funding to stipends and stuff for food service staff, to kind of
Wonderful.
build stability. So those just we've had positive experiences in working with USDA and being able to adjust when it makes more sense to accomplish our goals in a different way. So
Good, good. And I have found that to be true in most USDA grants that I've dealt with those folks because things change because it is such a long process. Shane, do you have anything you want to add as a sub-awardee?
Sure. Our sub award was agriculture, and we worked with our ag department at the high school and developed an aquaponics program where they started
Oh,
growing lettuce for our starting off for our high school, but eventually to spread to the middle school and then our elementary schools. And of course, the whole purpose of the program was to try to develop a self-sufficient program so that when the funding ran out, we would then be purchasing those products from the um, it was actually the ag student group. It wasn't the ag department. It was the
okay.
FFA group.
Oh,
So we
awesome.
would then purchase it from them so that they could retain that money in the FFA account and then continue to replenish what was needed in the greenhouse where the aquaponics system was. And then our portion of the funds, we ended up buying a refrigerated trailer so that we could move our farm to school products from one school to the other without worrying about it getting too warm and things like that. So and that I am no longer at that school. I have moved to Henderson County Schools, and so I'm looking for opportunities to expand their farm to school program there, which is why I'm on the call tonight. Just wanted to hear more about this new grant opportunity and see if we might be able to get involved.
Awesome. That is great. I love to hear that. I love it whenever, of course, we were talking earlier on a call that, FFA and 4-H, all of those youth ag programs are so dear to a lot of us that are on staff at KCARD. And that just really makes me excited. Our local school just got a new greenhouse. And so I love hearing, being able to work and have the kids continue to keep that program going. Thank you so much for sharing. That might be the highlight of my night. Thank you. Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, Lori. Appreciate you pointing that out. I did have one other that I had pulled up to kind of share, and that was KDA as a state agency back in 23 as well. And I don't know that we have anybody on here. We thought we might, but I don't think we do. Do we? Okay, I'm trying to look at my list here. No. Do
That's
either of
what
you?
Shane was talking about.
Oh, that one.
Union County. Yeah. So
Oh, so they
this
were a sub award on that.
they were one of these. Mhm.
Perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you. That's why we work as a team. Lori knows all this stuff. He knows all the players. Wonderful. So yeah, they were one of those sub awards. Great. So this is a way that you could have um, you know, the state agency working with the local school systems as well. So wonderful. All right. Um, so parts of the application. So knowing you guys that are on here, but for those that aren't and are going to see this afterwards, these are just the highlights of parts of the application that you'll need to complete. I won't read through all of these. They're all pretty standard for USDA. The match letters, the partner letters, the budget. Um, but just looking through this, making sure you have your CNP admin, um, making sure that you have all your activity and indicator trackers in there, um, your letters, key staff. If you are a nonprofit working with these groups, your documentation, and then of course those additional lovely grant forms that we'll talk about on the next page. So submission information, whenever we do grant workshops or grant talks, one of the highlights that I try to leave everybody with is a page that has know the deadline. Those things sneak up on us. I mean, I'm sorry, it's halfway through October, and the other day I was like, oh, it's halfway through October. Oh no. So, we're about 6 weeks out from the deadline for this. The deadline at grants.gov is 11:59 Eastern time. So just make sure that you have that on your calendar. Not news to a lot of you folks, but making sure that you do all of the pre-registration stuff that you can, get your grants.gov, get your UEI, make sure your SAM registration is up to date and current, and that they're talking to each other because that can be an issue at some point. And, do all of those things now and then you can, making sure all that works because it can take some time to get those things done. And hiccups happen all the time. Um, so just go ahead and try to get those things put together. And then we can help you with any of these. We do have a few other videos that we've done in the past on getting your SAMs, getting your UEI, those types of things, grants.gov, and walking through some of that stuff. So if you need any of that, just reach out and we're happy to share that with you. Questions. So it's been a great I don't even know what time it is. Hey, look at me. Um this has been really informative, not only, hopefully for you guys, but for me as well. I love to hear the activities and the projects that have gone on in the past, and what you guys are doing and thinking about doing. This is a great opportunity to collaborate. So, do I have any additional questions or comments anybody wants to make? I've done a lot of talking, sorry.
There was a question in the chat, and it just said confusing wording. I kind of use the money to serve food from the local producer, just not to do the taste testing. Um, in the RFA, it states that the goal of the funded products should be to make local food products available on menus long term. However, food purchases must be limited to educational purposes only. So you could do farm to CMP sample tables and taste tests or promotionals, um, not just buy food for the school, is my
Yes.
understanding. So
Yep. So you just can't
wanted to make sure
purchase
that
the
was
food for
addressed.
the school. Right. Thank you. Thank you, Katie.
Mhm.
Kara, could you talk a little bit about what match might look like in a proposal?
So, match can be in-kind labor. It can be, depending on who's providing that, it can be um, product. It can be anything that would be eligible to be paid for is an eligible match. So if you have cash in the bank, it's always considered a match. I mean, so you could do cash, but you could do things like your time, for example, Lori, you talked about staff time. Some of their time could be paid with the federal funds, but some of it could be put up as match. So you could work it that way. Um, but anything typically that can be purchased, usually we think of things like, if we're going to the example Katie just gave, um, local um, produce, let's say for a taste testing or for a tasting table, you could have, if that producer is part of the group or part of the partnership, they could provide a product as match. So things of that nature can be used as well. So it doesn't have to just be cash. I'm sure there's others that I haven't thought of when it comes to farm to school.
It can also be facilities and equipment. So if you have a producer willing to put forth some of their storage, their cold storage as a place, you could figure out a rental cost or what that rental cost is. And that could be matched as well if they're a partner on the project.
Wonderful. Thank you, Katie. Yes, yes.
Mhm.
I have an example I would like to bring up to see if you think that it might work or might be eligible. If I have an ag teacher who's already teaching, let's say, 6 periods a day, but is not teaching anything specific regarding farm to school or utilizing local foods and the importance of local foods in the economy or whatever. If we were to designate 1/6 of her salary for 2 years as a donated, something the school was paying for to provide, do you think that would work or count as an in-kind donation? I mean,
But that's what I was gonna say. I don't see why, because you could use her, which what her hourly wage would be, and you could establish that to use as income. Now, ladies, Lori is way more versed in some of this kind of stuff than I am. I'll be very honest, but in my mind, as the grant facility, just knowing how other grants work, that would be acceptable. Lori, am I missing something there?
You know better about what counts as match than I do, but
To me, that would be a legitimate match. Yes.
yeah,
Now, I'm happy to run it up the flagpole, which is what I would do with anybody with any grant specifically. If we know this is what we're thinking about, I am not opposed to asking somebody, "Hey, can we do this?" But in my mind, it works because you can allocate. We know that this many hours of her time, and this is what she would have gotten paid for it. But we're going to use this time. Now she's going to have to keep track of it, just like we would if we were going to pay somebody an hourly wage from the grant. But yes, I don't see why not at all.
Okay, yeah, if you don't mind running that up the flagpole, I would appreciate that because it's so hard for schools to come by cash.
Hmm.
That's what I've been thinking of in my mind is how do I come up with an in-kind donation. And the first thing that popped into my head was we might have some space available to utilize if we wanted to maybe start doing a hydroponic system at one
Hmm.
of the schools, and whether or not some of that space could be counted. But also, I think it would be important to know for sure if we could utilize if a teacher was specifically dedicated to furthering that portion of the grant, educating on that topic, if we could utilize that as an in-kind donation, that what we would normally have paid them.
I think that it's worth an ask. All they can say is no, and we can regroup.
All right. Appreciate
And
it.
Yep.
and
I'd
we're
also
taking
encourage you, Shane, to think about what your since you'll be required to have these partners on the grant, think about what your partners might be able to bring as match, either cash or in kind. Also,
Okay. Yep. That sounds good.
we're taking that staff angle too because our last two farm to school grants kind of led to our school. We don't have FFA, our district's little, but
Hmm.
our school created a new teaching position focused on food and agriculture as a result of our farm to school work. So we we kind of did a farm to schooly LFPP grant application this summer. And I guess one question, which isn't exactly farm to school related, but is wondering if anyone has heard the status. I feel like it was a super long shot for lots of reasons, but I was just wondering if anyone had heard the status of LFPP stuff. But we used a percentage of that teacher. And the one thing that our CFO in the district said was that like I ran it by him and he gave me the amount and some of her fringe benefits were federal dollars. So he took those out.
Yes. Good
So
point.
it's just making sure that none of their pay is federal dollars because none of those federal dollars can
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 count.
be part of the
Good
match.
point. Thank you, Connie. Yes, that's great.
But for us, most of it was fine, and that's my
Yeah.
idea for this
Yeah.
one too. So I'd be
And
curious to hear the
and
answer when you run it up the
yep,
flagpole.
we'll definitely share. And unfortunately, Connie, no, I haven't heard anything on that. So wonderful. Yeah. Thank you for the input. Anybody else? Making sure. Oh, so Katie has put a couple key objectives from the RFA, um, just to kind of as a reminder for folks, expanding um, experimental learning opportunities, school gardens. So yeah, that looks like that'd be a good fit there. Developing implementing curriculum to reinforce the nutrition-based learning. So yeah, I think they're really trying to focus on that. I saw that a couple times too, Katie. So thanks for pointing that out again. All right. So here is our contact information. Lori, I think, did you put yours in the chat already? Maybe? Nope. So they are the umbrella organization for Kentucky Farm to School Network. But I think, Lori, if you'll drop that, that way it's already in there too. I should have put yours on here. I did not. Um, but I am, as you guys can tell, I am not opposed to, if I don't know the answer, I will find the answer, figure out who I need to ask. So if you guys need either of those, but here again, I'll have our contact information when we share the recording as well. All right, let's see if I can stop sharing. There we go. There's everybody's smiling faces. I need more screens, people. Any other questions before we stop the recording? I don't think I have anything else. Lori, looks like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as people are working up plans, is there further assistance available from here?
Yes, yes. So as you're going through the process, any of the process, questions about would this work, budget review, any of those type of things, reach out to Katie and I. I'm happy to review those, look over them, ask, run it up the flagpole again if it's a questionable thing. Um, Going through the government grants.gov, going through any of those agencies to try to make sure that all of the back end stuff is done, like I said before. So definitely just reach out. We're happy to help review, edit, make suggestions, do what we can. So our goal here at KCARD is to get more dollars back into Kentucky. So anything we can do to help you guys succeed, that's what we're here for. And I love to learn about this stuff because this is not my normal wheelhouse. I love it.
I do have one more question, and I
Yes, ma'am.
usually just stay away from it because I feel like it kind of raises red flags. But like when they talk about AmeriCorps Vista, um, they're like, of course, like federal dollars, like the Vista's time can't count and living allowance and stuff. But then they also often have like this caveat for, like my Vista position is through the Friends of the Franklin County Farmers Market. And so we have a site contribution. And the way I sometimes read their language about it is that the site contribution that the organization pays could potentially be matching funds as long as it's not federal dollars, which in our case it isn't. Um, so just wanted to get, but
So
I'm just worried that it just raises red flags, and I tend to find another way to talk about matches that never mentions AmeriCorps Vista.
So
But I'm
that was
kind
going to be
of
my question. So the site is owned by.
Um, well, for us, we work with the Housing and Homeless Coalition of Kentucky. They are like the
Okay.
AmeriCorps Vista people. And
Okay, I
then
got you.
the Friends of the Franklin County Farmers Market is the site where I am based.
Okay.
Um, and Housing and Homeless Coalition of Kentucky sets a site contribution that goes to them. Like for us, it's $6,500 a year that
Okay.
we have to pay to them. It doesn't go towards my pay at all. It
Mhm.
just goes to HHCK for their expenses. And then my living allowance comes from the federal government. And so
I
it's that $6,500 that when I read various
Right.
places, it seems like it could potentially be a match. But I've always managed to make things work without
Yeah.
including
I
it.
I
But I
think
was
as
just
long as
curious.
we could show it's not federal, which you can, I
Yeah.
I think it would be fine.
Yeah. It's
Um
just nice because yeah, it's
yeah.
the one like turning $6,500 into a full-time position is kind of a magical thing.
It's magical. I
So
love it. I mean, you're going to have to show us how you do it.
unfortunately, you can only do it for 5 years, and I only have 1 year of eligibility left. But yeah.
I don't I think that would I mean, as long as we can show it's not federal dollars. And I
Hmm.
mean, it's not your time, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's using that site as match basically.
And part of it is just the question of if someone's reading lots of grant applications fast, is it
Mhm.
just a red flag that is better to stay
Yeah,
away from?
I know what you're
Like
saying.
that's kind of always been in my head when I've contemplated it too.
Yeah,
So I don't know. Anyhow, I just
understood.
figured with
Yeah.
all of these experts in the room, I would ask this question that's been in the back of my head for a couple of years. So
Anybody else, please. That's my take. So,
okay.
but I'm here again. I mean, if I will ask the question to somebody if I can find out who to ask. So,
It's like we need somebody who's been a reviewer to tell us that one.
I know. Okay. Well, thank you, Shane. Thank you so much. Katie, I think we could probably stop recording.